Spoilers will be discussed throughout this video. Hello everyone, Joe Kiger here, and today I'm talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm going to apologize in advance for the lack of editing and clips throughout this video. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this movie since it's blowing up right now and getting a ton of attention and a ton of praise, which I personally don't think it deserves all the praise. But let me get into some disclaimers first so that I can just get those out of the way and then talk about the movie, because I know that there's a lot of things that went on surrounding the movie that I think a lot of people maybe skew their ratings because of these things. But okay, first things first, Zack Snyder's personal struggle with this film. I know that this is an achievement for an individual artist bringing his vision to life with this story, and that's cool. And I also know that Zack Snyder's daughter tragically passed away while he was working on Justice League, and that's horrible. And I know that it was a big struggle for him to get this film made, and that's cool, so props to him for that. But also, I know that there's a huge divide in the fan bases between Marvel and DC. I don't know why we have to always fight about this and compare all the time. But I just need to clear my name and say I'm not a huge fan of either studio, either extended cinematic universe. I used to love Marvel a lot, and then the more I watched their movies and the more new things came out, I was like, this is kind of generic. It's kind of boring to me. So I'm not a huge fan of them anymore. I think they do have better movies than DC in general, but that's just how I feel about them. And especially in recent years, I've been kind of disappointed with Marvel. But then for DC, they really haven't made any great films, in my opinion, besides Wonder Woman. So that's how I feel about those things. And now let's talk about the hype that this movie is getting. I truly cannot believe how highly rated this is. Audiences are going crazy for this movie, and I don't think it's very deserved at all. So let me try to recall some facts. On IMDb, it's being rated as like one of the top 125 movies of all time on its top 250 list, with like an 8.4 out of 10, which is super high. It's being more highly rated than like Batman Begins, Shutter Island, The Wolf of Wall Street, and Jurassic Park. Those were some ones that stuck out to me, and I was just like, this is an atrocity. This is not deserved at all. And then for Rotten Tomatoes, I believe it has like a 96 or 97% audience score. The critics aren't being as generous. I actually do agree with the critics more on this one, but audiences are just praising this movie like crazy. And I saw a comment that said a lot of people were hating on this film before it even came out, and it turned out great. For one thing, I don't think it turned out great. And for another thing, I didn't see any hate surrounding this movie before it came out. I mean, I didn't keep up with it a ton, but I saw some trailers, read some comments, and all that I saw was positive, positive, positive. Like huge hopes, a ton of optimism. And I believe that an issue with the ratings of this film, for audiences at least, is a bit of a self-fulfilled prophecy. A lot of people, from what I saw, were just saying, oh, this looks great. It's going to be so different. It looks amazing. And then I think people just believed it, so they saw what they believed and praised the movie like crazy. But so with all of that out of the way, let me get into some thoughts that I have about the movie itself. I'm going to do some positives and then I'll do some negatives. So let's get into it. So I have two positives for this film, and I know that's not a lot, but personally I thought the bad outweighed the good by a lot, unfortunately. So, but positive number one, I would say a lot of moments, scenes, and shots looked really cool. They were very exciting and well shot. So some examples of this, I loved the Superman sun shot when he flew out into space and turned around and you could see his shadow with the sun in the background. I thought that was really cool. Another thing that looked great and was very exciting to watch was the Defenders of Earth scene fighting Darkseid and all those bad guys. I thought that was pretty awesome. A little too long, but pretty awesome. And then finally, I also thought some parts of the final battle looked a lot cooler and were more exciting to watch. Like Cyborg when he was like flying through these buildings and he like did a 360 spin move and all the buildings started collapsing. I was like, that's cool. Aquaman and Cyborg had like a cool double team thing going on. So a lot of these moments and fight scenes I thought looked better and were very interesting and engaging to watch. Positive number 2, I think they did a better job of developing these characters like Cyborg, Flash, and Batman. I still had issues with these characters and some of the writing and dialogue with them, but they did a better job of fleshing them out and giving them more of that emotional appeal for the audience. That's going to do it for my positives, unfortunately. I didn't really think they improved on a lot. They did better on some things, and I do think the film was better than Justice League, but I still think they did a lot of things wrong. And now let me get into the negatives. Starting with the elephant in the room, the movie was way too long. And it wasn't just too long. I mean, you can have a long runtime and still tell a great story and be engaging the whole time. I don't think this film did it. I thought it was very boring at parts. A lot of scenes seemed unnecessary. They dragged a lot. There was a ton of slow-mo. And normally I wouldn't complain about something technical like that, but it became a huge distraction to me. And I know that I saw someone say that there were no deleted scenes in the film at all. And they acted like that was a good thing. That's a horrible thing. There's a reason why there are deleted scenes in movies. It's because directors realize that not everything that they want to have in the film is going to work. And I would say definitely a lot of things that Zack Snyder's Justice League had in it did not work, and they were too long and they were unnecessary, and yet they stayed in the film, made it way too long, way too drawn out, way too boring. My second negative for the film is that the dialogue was really bad, in my opinion. These characters did not feel real to me at all, even less so than they did in Justice League. I don't know why. The dialogue was corny. It was weird. It felt like they were trying to build up these big superhero lines that didn't translate well at all. And I don't know if it's the actor's fault, if it's the writer's fault, but even scenes with Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck felt weird to me. They didn't feel authentic, and I was like, these are some top tier actors here, and yet their dialogue is coming off strange. And I would say the biggest examples of this for me was Flash's monologue when he was resetting the universe, traveling back in time. He was saying all those lines about create your own future, create your own past. And I was like, this is so out of place. It seemed like a teenager was writing like a huge dialogue line that they were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And it didn't translate well for me at all. And then another part was when Aquaman was starting this saying that he had from Atlantis, and Wonder Woman like finished the saying, and they were like, oh, we have the same saying. And it was like they were trying to build a heartfelt like chemistry moment between those two, and it felt so awkward to me. And it's not just these scenes, it was a lot of other, but those are the two that I remember the most that felt corny and just poorly written. My third negative for Zack Snyder's Justice League is that even though they did a better job of fleshing out these characters and providing a little bit more backstory, they still were not that compelling to me. It was shocking, honestly, because I expected to like Cyborg a lot more, like when it showed that scene of his mom dying and his dad crying in the hospital, and yet he still felt like the same Cyborg from Justice League. Even though he did have a better arc, he was still just kind of a boring, flat character that had flat lines. And, you know, it may be a mixture of acting and writing. It's probably more writing, but I felt the same way about Ben Affleck's Batman. He was not engaging to me at all. And he had like a weird dynamic where he was about faith and hope. And I know that's what they were going for with the impact that Superman made on him, but it got to a point where it was like almost childish, and it didn't fit his character with the other installments of him, like the first Justice League or Batman versus Superman. And then again with Flash, he was given more backstory, and yet he still was kind of annoying to me, and he wasn't that funny. And I didn't feel really connected to him. I didn't feel connected to anyone in this film. And maybe that's just me being insensitive or something, you could say that. But I really didn't feel connected to these characters, even though they provided more backstory and fleshed them out a little bit more. Negative number 4. Steppenwolf was still underdeveloped, still very one note, just a bad guy trying to serve a bigger bad guy that we really don't know that much about. And I was still disappointed with him. Did he look better? Yeah, I think he did. Did he have cooler fight scenes? Yes, I think so. But again, he was just flat. And I don't know why they couldn't develop him. It was like, well, he betrayed Darkseid previously, and now he wants to be on Darkseid's side, or something like that. But again, nothing happens with him. He's not interesting. He's not relatable. You can't understand his motives. He's trying to serve the bigger guy. And I was really disappointed with Steppenwolf again. My fifth negative for the film is that a lot of technical elements that they went for and changed up seemed very unnecessary to me and even became distracting and made the film worse as a whole. I'm not a film scholar. I don't claim to understand hardly any of the artistic choices that directors make. Sometimes I can look at it and be like, oh, I understand how that relates to the story. But for Justice League, I don't know why they changed the aspect ratio. And I normally wouldn't complain. Like, I really don't care that they changed it. But it was kind of distracting at parts. And they also changed the music. They had a new theme for Wonder Woman where, I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't have noticed it. It just sounded like a woman screaming. And it was so distracting because sometimes I was like, wait, is it Wonder Woman screaming? And the music was a lot worse in general, in my opinion. A lot of the editing things that they chose and like camera shots, I thought did not work at all. There was way too much slow-mo. And this was another thing where it's like, I really wouldn't complain about it, but it became a huge problem for me. It made the movie drag. It didn't serve the story well. And it was doing slow-mo for parts that weren't even that dramatic. But then some parts were over-dramatic. And they chose editing styles that were just way over the top. Like Joker being completely out of focus almost. And like the camera moving and him going in and out of focus. And I understand kind of what they were doing with Joker. Because like he's an unstable human being. So the camera's going to be unstable. And you can't get a good read on him, so he's going to be out of focus. But I just was distracted by it. It didn't help the story to me that much. And so yeah, a lot of technical elements fell flat to me and made the film worse. Along with all the technical elements that didn't work well for me, let's mention the CGI. It was pretty bad, if you ask me. There were some scenes where it looked good, and I had no issues. But there were other parts, especially on Themyscira, where Wonder Woman is from, where I was like, the background looks super fake right now. And these big, elaborate CGI shots looked fake. And I know that this movie is technically like 4 years old now or something, but I don't know if they redid shots, if they worked on the CGI more or what. But there were a lot of big CGI parts that did not look good to me at all. And I was kind of surprised and disappointed by this. So that's pretty much my positives and negatives for the film, but I wanted to address one more thing on a comment that I read that I think a lot of people agreed with because it looked like they had all liked the comment and had like thousands of likes. So I heard that someone said, you know, this film just feels like a Justice League movie. It feels like a comic book of the Justice League. And I could see where they're coming from on that. I could even agree with what they're saying. I think it did feel like a comic book movie. But just because it got the feel right, I don't think that immediately makes it a good movie. There's still problems with the storytelling. There's still problems with the characters. There's still problems with the technical elements that were very glaring to me. And I don't know why anyone else has said anything about it. And I didn't go into this film wanting it to be bad. I expected it to be bad because I know that Zack Snyder hasn't really come out with anything great that I've seen, which is why I was confused about the hype. But I didn't want to hate this movie. I didn't expect to like it, to be honest. But I saw the great ratings and I was like, you know, maybe this will be good. And I just don't think it was. So even though it may have felt like a comic book, it still doesn't mean that it's a good movie. Those are my thoughts on Zack Snyder's Justice League. I know that a lot of you will disagree with me, but I wanted to share my thoughts anyway, because for one thing, I just like doing it. And for another thing, I felt like people like me that have this opinion are not being heard at all right now because all of the bad reviews are being drowned out by overwhelmingly positive reviews like I mentioned. So maybe I can balance the force a little bit. But that's going to do it for me, and I'll see you all in the next video.